Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Erika by Design. I am so excited for today's show. We are joined by Melissa Russiano, who is a licensed clinical social worker who has been in practice for the past 12 years, right, Melissa?
In private practice for 12
Nice,
years, yes.
nice, nice. But she didn't start there. She had a career in
Mhm,
nonprofit administration. So, as many of the guests, she has a career transition, and we're going to delve into that
mhm.
as we get into the
Absolutely.
conversation. Yes. And Melissa is passionate about partnering with busy professionals to avoid burnout and find the balance. I love those two words and how they kind of
Mhm,
are yin yang.
mhm, mhm,
Find the balance they are seeking so they can
mhm.
thrive. So, Melissa, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so
No
excited to be here
problem.
today.
Yes, this is going to be a good conversation because you're going to be speaking directly to me. I'm going to be honest, and we'll get into it. You guys will figure out why she's speaking to me in a second. But Melissa, like I said, all the people that have come on the show, all the amazing women, we all kind of
Mhm,
have this career transition that we've been through.
mhm,
And we
mhm,
touched on that a little bit. So
mhm,
can you give us like a brief sort of how did that come about in your life? How did you go from
mhm,
administration
mhm.
to private practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a lot of women, I started out in my career doing some agency work because that was kind of what you do in the beginning of a clinical career is kind of get your feet wet, work in some residential, some hospitals. And then I ended up having my beautiful daughter. And at
Oh.
that point decided, I don't think I want to work full time anymore. So went back to agency work, but just started working like 8 hours a week, 10 hours a week. And suddenly that just sort of evolved into supervisory positions, administrative positions. And then I spent probably, I'd say, the next 8 to 10 years in different executive director roles, all within the similar company. And we got to a point, or I got to a point, I should say, at that point, I was a single mom and I had an 8-year-old daughter, and I was miserable.
Mm.
And my physician looked at me and said, "Okay, we should try Prozac." And I said, "I'm not taking Prozac." And
I had
his
that
res
same experience. I'm sorry.
"Really?
Yes.
That's so funny." And he's looking at me, he's like, You're a clinician. Why are you refusing meds?" And I said, "I'm all for medications. But my job is something I can change,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna take a medication for something that's within my control to change. And so I started looking at opportunities. I started like, okay, how could I do this? I'm a single mom. I'm not getting child support. So I've got to be super, no family in the area. I
Mm.
have to be super smart about this. Started talking to a couple of folks in private practice, and it happened to be around Thanksgiving time. And they said, "Hey, we think you're a perfect fit. We like your energy. Come join our group." Um, so I went out in my area around Thanksgiving. You could buy turkeys. Like if you spent $25 at the grocery store, the turkeys were like 10 cents a pound.
Uh-huh.
So I had a deep freezer filled with 5 frozen turkeys because at least we'd eat turkeys if I wasn't making any money for a while.
Well, there you
And
go.
so I know
Turkey
6 weeks
soup, turkey salad,
turkey,
turkey sandwiches.
anything. Yes, and so 6 weeks later, I saw my first client, and I was full within a month. I've never looked back. It was the
Mm,
best decision I ever made, but it came from a point of me being completely burned out and
mhm,
just really considering a complete career change, and instead, I moved within my career, in order to have that autonomy, but it was a scary jump. It
yeah,
was a really scary jump, but I wouldn't do anything different.
no, I love that. It's
Yeah.
so funny, your story, it so resonates with my head
Mhm,
because I come from healthcare as well. I'm a
mhm,
pharmacist and had that same burnout experience and
mhm.
was at the physician office one day and
Yeah,
just in tears, and she's like, "What the
mhm.
world is wrong with you?"
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
"We're gonna
Mhm.
give you some medication." And again, I didn't
Right.
wanna take the medication because
Mhm.
I felt like it was something that was more external, you know what I mean?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I get that
Mhm,
completely. And
mhm,
so, in that process of sort of making that decision of I'm gonna leave what I know, this experience
right.
that I've
Mhm,
had to
mhm,
transition,
mhm,
what's one thing that you would say to some women that are in that same situation, like to
mhm.
help them break through that fear barrier?
Yeah, and there is a really huge fear barrier there
Mhm.
because when you're going into being self-employed, it's you're leaving a steady paycheck, you're leaving probably healthcare benefits, vacation pay, holiday pay. You're leaving this very comfortable nest, but you're gaining the freedom of being able to really thrive and become what it was you were created to be, find your purpose. And I would say to somebody with those fears is to really confront them head on and to have a tribe, have your people, have that support group and plan as much as you can. But I was planning, like, I need this much in savings. I need to have this lined up. I need to have this lined up. And literally in 6 weeks, I had none of that.
Mhm.
But I made the jump
Mhm.
and was able to conquer those fears by relying on my support systems and realizing that this had always been my dream.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a scrapper, and so, and feisty and stubborn, and so I was gonna make it work, and if it didn't work, I could always go to plan B. But if I didn't try, if I didn't take that leap, then I would always be stuck and settling.
Mhm. I love that. I always talk about that, like, when you get to, like, your 80s or 90s or 100s, if you are blessed to live that
Mhm.
long,
Mhm.
do you want to just be thinking about what you wish you would have
Mm.
done as
Right.
opposed to trying it? And,
Absolutely. Mhm.
if it happens to not work, you go on to
Mhm.
other things, but at least you gave it
Absolutely.
a try.
Exactly.
So I love
Exactly.
that. And you did have a plan actually, because you had those 6 turkeys.
I had the
You
turkeys,
did.
yes. And, I tell that story so much because I look back and laugh at myself, like, "Really? Like, turkeys were going to save you?" But in my brain at
Right.
that time, I was in mama mode.
Yes.
My picky eater child loved turkey, and so I was like, "Okay, we can live on turkey."
Right.
And I think we ended up giving a few away because I didn't need them, but I had them just in
Right.
case.
But it
Yes.
kind of
Mhm.
speaks to the idea of, everybody has their own path. Everybody has their
Exactly.
things that give them the security or the comfort
Right.
to move forward. And that was
Right.
yours. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. Awesome. I love hearing women's stories. They're so inspiring to
Mhm.
me, just to hear kind of what people go through because we all
Right.
have very similar stories that we
Mhm.
kind of share that we really don't know about. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the one thing I want to talk to you about today,
Mhm.
well, not the one thing, there's several things, but what I want to get into now is really the meat of the conversation
Mhm.
around
Mhm.
some of these similarities that small business owners that are
Mhm.
women have,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, women in
Mhm.
corporate.
Mhm.
It's a lot of hats
Oh
that
my
we
gosh,
wear,
yes.
you know?
Yes, a ton. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I hear, I'm sure everybody hears the word work-life balance
Mhm.
all the time. I have to be
Mhm.
able to balance my
Mhm.
kids and my husband
Right.
and my
Mhm.
dog and my job
Mhm.
and my
Right.
fitness.
Mhm.
Do you think work-life balance exists?
I think a version of work-life balance can exist.
Mhm.
However, not as clean and neat and black and white and cookie cuttered as it's proposed or as it's presented. Like, you need to have work-life balance. Okay, that's great. Tell me how I'm gonna do that. But with some intentional focus on making sure you carve out that time for you, making sure you are really listening to your body and listening to your needs,
Mhm.
you can have a form of work-life balance. It's just not all of it's going to look different for all of us, and it's just not going to be as clean and neat
Mhm.
as I think people aspire to
Right.
or have an expectation of.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of times people get caught up in what others say it should look like.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely. Mhm.
always personal to you,
Yeah,
what your work life could be. Because
absolutely.
some women out there love to work. Like they actually, that is
Mhm, mhm. Right,
they thrive off of that. And
right,
so if they have more work hours than I do, that's fine because that's how they function.
right. Exactly, but isn't that just basically our culture as a whole? Is that because you may define work-life balance like this, that I feel like I need to match
Mm,
or beat your definition of work-life balance? I think that has become a lot of our culture of we base our worth we base our value on how other people define certain terms for us,
Mhm.
instead of looking within and saying, okay, how do I define it? Because that's all that matters at the end of the day,
Right.
is how I define it and how I find that sweet spot for me.
Yeah. What role do you think social media plays in that?
Oh my gosh. Do we have a couple hours to talk? Um, I I am on social media solely because um my peoples said I needed to be. Um
Oh.
but and trust me, it took a year of kicking and screaming. I really feel that social media, especially over the last year, has really been a destructive force
Mm,
within our culture, within how we view ourselves, within how we compare ourselves. I think social media has a very positive, a really great positive role, but I think what it's morphed and become is a comparison game.
mhm.
And, when I'm working with clients, I often say, they're like, well, Sally had this beautiful picture of their perfectly cleaned house, and all the kids were smiling and happy. And I said, true, but did maybe Sally have 50 takes and a filter and, Airbrush Pro to like
Right.
smooth out all the lines and put the makeup on? Like, how do you know that that's reality? But
Mhm.
unfortunately, we look at it and we take it as reality. And I think even as professionals, um, it happens too. There's been times I've gotten on social media just to respond to somebody's message, and I see this great new course somebody developed. And I was like, oh, look what they did with their pandemic experience. Like, I've just been working. So I think no matter how confident you are, no matter how secure you are in whatever you're doing, I think we're all prone to
Mhm.
that comparison game. And if that healthy self-image, self-esteem foundation is not there, social media can be very destructive.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. I'm right there with you. Social media is not my cup of tea. I
Yes.
know I need to
Mhm.
be there, but it can be a struggle. I remember when I
Mhm.
first started, I was so concerned. Don't judge me, people. I was so concerned by the number of likes and like hearts, and I'm
Absolutely.
like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, my picture didn't get
Mhm.
anything. What am I doing
Mhm.
wrong?
Right.
it
Absolutely.
it was horrible, and I'm
Mhm.
a 40-something-year-old woman. This should
Right.
not be
Mhm.
impacting me like this.
Right. Right. Mhm.
Yeah, but it took a while.
Right.
So, how do you what do you suggest people do to sort of help address those feelings that of inadequacy that social media
Yeah.
put on us?
And well, first and foremost, realizing that that is like one piece of that individual's life.
Mhm.
That is one piece of what they are putting out to the world, if it's on a personal social media or even on a professional feed. That is just one piece of who they are. And social media doesn't define who you are. And to be able to look at, what am I grateful for? Where are my strengths? Where are my blessings within my life? And anybody who knows me will tell you I am not little Miss Mary Sunshine. But it's so I'm not saying look for rainbows and unicorns, but there's always something positive going on. And comparing yourself to a picture of somebody who may be thinner or prettier or has their life more together,
Mhm.
all that is a perception.
Yeah.
That is a perception of reality, and to really focus on what your truth is,
Yeah.
and to be able to look in and say, okay, what is my truth? What is my foundation? Where are my core values? Because anybody can gloss up a picture. I mean, look at the App Store. I mean, you could download like 20 filtering screens for videos, for pictures, um, and look however you want to look.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're happy on the inside. That doesn't mean you're fulfilled. It just means you have a good social media post.
Exactly. Exactly. I
I'd
would
rather have the whole picture.
right.
Mhm.
I read that the real thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Mhm,
yes, yes. I love
mhm,
that. I
mhm.
had a question. I just completely lost it when we started
I'm
talking about
sorry.
No, you're fine, you're fine. This has been happening lately. I think I'm getting older and just my brain is not working. how it should be working.
Mhm.
But we were talking about social media, and I
Mhm.
was thinking, that's just one piece of kind of like feeling inadequate.
Right.
And I know that there are other people out there, even in corporate, where you feel like not just everybody's better than you on social media, but just everybody's doing everything right.
Better, period.
Better.
Correct.
Yes,
Mhm.
that whole
Mhm.
imposter syndrome thing.
Absolutely.
Why this okay, this question just came in my head. Do you think that happens more to women than men? Is there any data out there about that?
That is probably one of the best questions I've been asked in a very long time because I don't know if there's data out there.
Okay.
So of course, when we disconnect, I'm going to be going to look for data. I'll forward anything I find to you because
Love-
now I'm super curious. But in my experience, I have found that it works, that it impacts women a lot more than it impacts men because we view it differently.
Hmm.
Men may view it as a career trajectory, or women view it as um, everything else that really makes a person them. And so because of that, you can feel an imposter as a mom, you can feel as a friend, as a daughter, as a wife, as a PTA member, as much as a CEO, whereas I think men compartmentalize
Huh.
a little bit more. So I have this theory on men and women's brains. It's not my theory. I'm not taking ownership of it. Um, but is that men's brain are like waffles.
Okay.
Everything's got a nook and a cranny.
Gotcha.
And every now and then you put a little bit too much butter, a little bit too much syrup, and things flow into other nooks and crannies. But as long as you play it cool, everything stays within its nook and cranny, nothing bleeds into another. So since we are the more brilliant race, or gender, I should
Mhm.
say, is we have spaghetti brains. And in
Okay.
a spaghetti brain, absolutely everything is interconnected. And
Yes.
so when you look at a bowl of spaghetti, you can't tell what is connected to what is connected to what is connected to what. So if I feel like an imposter in my career, it's very easy for me to transition that home because it's all intertwined and it's all interconnected. So that's why I feel like it impacts women more than it impacts men.
That is intriguing. So no more Mars versus Venus. It's waffles versus spaghetti.
Waffle Swiss spaghetti. And usually I tell people, like guys, when they're dating and my clients, I'm like, we all females have spaghetti brains, but do you want to be with a child-sized platter or a family-sized platter? And so, but we all have spaghetti brains. It just matters what portion size.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I never thought about, you're right. The imposter syndrome, it's not just in business, it's in everything. It's
it's an
across
absolutely
the
everything.
board.
Right. Right. And it's very intriguing. I worked with a judge years ago and had just a very messy personal life going on. But as soon as she would put the robe on, she could step into the role.
Huh.
So it's almost like I'm putting my uniform on,
Right.
I'm gonna rise up, and was a total rock star judge. As soon as the robe came off, she kinda melted back into, having those issues within her personal life, and it was very fascinating because for her, the robe, it was almost like a shield to
Mm.
feeling like an imposter until she took it off, and then everything kind of came back in like, well, gosh, if they only knew what was going on in my personal life, nobody would want me on the bench type of attitude. So I think it truly impacts us in so many different levels in so many different ways.
Hmm.
And a lot of it's probably unconscious because it's so ingrained in that negative thought process.
Right. Okay, now I have a different question. Like, this is
Uh-huh.
very intriguing to me. So, because I'm wondering, does it tend to impact high achieving women at a greater level than other?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's due to the drive, that inner commitment, the need and want to excel. Um, probably some perfectionism that kind of creeps up in there, or a quest towards perfectionism,
Mhm.
and just wanting to be viewed as that upper echelon or tier in whatever career they're in.
Mhm.
And I think because the stakes are higher in the career, the imposter syndrome, those fears are even higher as well. So it almost like matches,
Mm.
the level of stress or intensity within the position.
Hmm. I needed you like 5 years ago because what I'm hearing is that all of the things that were going in my head, I was not alone.
No,
That I was.
no, 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 no. And that's the one issue that, I mean, and I've experienced it myself at multiple different times in my career. And obviously, I gave the social media example about somebody's pandemic experience that certainly wasn't mine. But it's like there's shame involved with that, and
Right.
so you're feeling like, "I'm not qualified, I can't do this. When are they gonna find out? When
Mhm.
am I gonna be found out and caught? And I've gotta protect this and be private, and so I'm gonna hide it," and shame just manifests in the shadows,
Yeah.
but to be able to put it on the table, have a conversation, and be able, like you said 5 years ago, to hear like, "Welcome to common humanity." This
Yeah.
is it's I don't wanna say everybody has it, but it's more normal than I think women realize.
Right. Right. Wow. And it's the layers of it. I never even
Mhm,
thought about it because you have
mhm.
like this umbrella term of imposter syndrome.
Right,
To your
exactly.
point, it's
Mhm,
negative self-talk, it's the
exactly,
shame, it's,
exactly. Mhm,
perfectionism,
mhm. Right,
all those
mhm,
things tied in.
right.
That's
Yes,
that can't
yes.
be fixed in one sitting.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. And I'm not sure, to be honest, how long the term imposter syndrome, because it's become, I'm not going to call it trendy,
Mm,
but a little bit more on the pop culture side of words to be utilized.
mhm.
I'd say in the last 3 to 5 years. I'm sure it's been around a lot longer than that, but it truly just is a an umbrella word, like you said,
Yeah.
for overachievers, for type A personality, for perfectionism, for anxiety, for stress, for all those fears. And that's what it's been called as long as I've been practicing.
Mhm.
Now we just have a collective term for it. And it makes sense. You feel like you're playing a role. And if you're found out, or if somebody really knew what was going on, then you would lose
Yeah.
that status, whatever that status is.
Yeah. I wish these were the conversations we would have in corporate. Like, you know how you have corporate retreats and you do
Mhm.
professional development and personal
Yes.
development. None of
Mhm.
this stuff is ever talked
Mhm.
about. Like, this
Mhm.
needs to be a conversation
Mhm.
within corporations.
Yeah, and I wonder what the well, I guess I don't wonder as much, like, what that barrier is,
Mm,
because if individuals can work through that
mhm.
and, not become this touchy-feely yoga retreat, high-powered business, but to be able to authentically, be able to know their strengths and the areas that they're challenged in, you're going to have more efficient employees.
Yeah.
You're going to have a more productive team, and that's going to impact the bottom line of whatever that company is. So I believe it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's just not widely accepted.
Yeah. It's a shame. I believe it's
Hmm.
a shame. People just don't want to admit
Right.
or have others understand what
Right.
they're going
Hmm. Right.
through.
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason a lot of higher achiever women are looking at coaches.
Mm,
Because if I pull a coach in, that's performance related, that's development related. If I pull a therapist in, then I'm broken.
right.
And going to therapy is not about being broken. Going to therapy is about wanting to be the best version of you. And sometimes that means working through some negative core messages that you're holding on to that it's time to eradicate and, replace them with something that's more positive and be able to work through those shame messages so they're no longer holding you back.
Yeah. I agree. I've had a therapist and a coach. sometimes at the same time. So
Exactly,
I am all
exactly.
for it.
Yes, yes, I think everybody at some point in their life, and I'm not saying it's because my business, but I think everybody could benefit from therapy at one point in their life solely to understand themselves better, and if you understand you better, then you're gonna excel at whatever you want to. You're gonna have deeper relationships because 'cause you're gonna understand needs and wants, um, and I just think overall you're gonna be a happier, more content individual.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that I was not prepared for when I entered into the world of therapy and coaching for myself was,
Mhm, mhm.
again, I was thinking it was going to be a rapid thing. Like I'm not that broken. I'm not that like screwed up that I
Uh,
would need like
uh-huh,
years of stuff.
uh-huh,
So
mhm,
for anybody out there that hasn't tried coaching or therapy, just know that it's a
mhm.
process.
It is a process, yes, and there's no one-time fix, there's no magic cure. I wish there was, but it is a process, and just like, the whole diet culture, a fad diet, you can drop 50 pounds in a month, not in a healthy way, I'm not recommending that, but as soon as you start eating carbs again, you're gonna gain it all back. Um, in therapy's a similar way. You could have a quick fix, but it's not gonna stick around.
Mhm.
And if you want that deep lifestyle change, then that takes time and it is a process.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back to one thing that you said because it's
Mhm.
it's sticking in my head and it's not like leaving me, so I know I need to ask the question.
Okay.
You were talking about the negative self-talk, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what are ways that women can sort of eliminate that negative self-talk that keeps coming up into their
Mhm.
heads?
Yeah, we excel at negative self-talk.
Let me tell you, my gremlins in my head are like,
They're yapping all the
yes.
time. Um, first and foremost, acknowledging that it's there,
Mhm,
and because we hear the same, sometimes I'll call it your inner critic, because we hear the same critic voice over and over again, it's almost like it hits our subconscious, and we're not able to be able to acknowledge it in the present. So first and foremost, to understand what it is.
mhm,
And there was a statistic from a study out of Yale. I'm pretty sure it was updated, but the one I always refer to is it takes 7 positive statements to outweigh 1 negative.
I think I've heard that. Mm.
Well, so when you think about how many negative things we say to ourselves in a day, like, it almost feels egotistical to cover them with all of these positive statements.
Mm,
It's just not in our culture, it's not in our nature. And so when I'm working with clients and I'm talking about negative self-talk, is we target one statement at a time
mm,
and usually take the bigger statements. And so it's not like I like my hair. We're gonna look like I have worth and value. I deserve happiness. Like some of those really deep that multiple different offshoots of negative comments come from.
mhm.
And then I usually get cussed at, but they do it. I love my clients, but every single time you walk through a doorway, and I encourage all your listeners to try this, every single time you walk through a doorway, to say your mantra to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, just say it in your head. So let's say it's 3 to 5 words only, because if it's any more than that, you're gonna give up by the second doorway. But it's, you walk into the kitchen, I have worth and value.
Mm,
You walk out of the kitchen, I have worth and value. By the end of a week, if you can consistently do that, by the end of a week, you're gonna be like, huh, maybe I do have worth and value. And because all you're doing is flooding that negative self-talk, that one global statement, you're flooding it with a positive statement. Is there anything magical about doorways? Absolutely not. We just walk through a ton of them
yeah.
each day. And so it's just that tact, that reminder for us to say, okay, I'm going to say something positive, and it really truly is gonna have an impact. And then once you're able to see, like, okay, I can make a difference here, then it can carry over to different statements, and to be able to look at a statement and say, okay, that's fear talking.
Mhm.
This is my truth. But first and foremost, 3 to 5 word mantra, and start just knocking those gremlins out.
I like that. I'm gonna try that. I'm the girl that struggles with affirmations. I'm gonna be
Mhm,
honest. I
mhm,
do. I'm like I
mhm.
buck the system. If you tell me to do affirmations, I'm like, I don't like affirmations. Like whatever you, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Um, so, but that sounds simple
mhm,
enough,
absolutely.
where
Mhm.
I can feel like I'm doing it consistently.
Correct. And the important thing is short and sweet, but the same exact mantra,
Mhm.
because if you start tackling all of, kind of like whack-a-mole at like carnival games, if you start tackling all of them, you're not going to be able to make an impact. So choose the one that you want to believe the most. That's the one you start tackling.
Mm,
And even if it comes with grumbling, it comes with grumbling. Your brain is still hearing a positive affirmation.
yeah, yeah. So if I were to do the mantra however many times, once I actually internalize it and feel
Mhm,
that I believe
mhm,
it, is that
mhm,
when I then add something new or change it out, or kind
mhm.
of what's the process?
Absolutely, you can change it out, you can add something new, but if you're targeting that core value and critical voice
Mhm.
first, typically then what happens, okay, I have worth and value. We're just going to overuse that one. And something else kicks in and you're like, "No, wait, I have worth and value." That's a fear. And some days you can choose to give into the fear, but then it's a choice. Right now, especially with women, our negative self-talk is like boom, boom, it's rapid fire. And so to be able to shift the thinking in one major area is going to allow you then to have a choice in those other areas to be like, okay, do I want to believe that? Or
Mhm.
do I still want to believe I have worth and value? And typically, if you circle back, then they all start
Mhm.
kind of resolving as you tackle them as they come up.
Yeah, I like that. I might actually add that to my meditation. I usually do like breathe in positivity,
Uh-huh.
breathe out negative.
Right? Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I might do that. All right. I'm sorry, guys. That was my own personal edification.
I hope it helps. You'll have to report back to me and let me know what you think.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
I love it. Okay. So that helps. That helps us understand just the different things that are going on with just
Right.
everything that has to do with the umbrella of imposter syndrome. So
Absolutely. And it's huge.
it is.
But the key point is there's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope. You're not alone. There's a lot of women who feel that. The conversations need to be had. And if there isn't that core group that, are your marble jar friends or your lifelong friends, a coach, a therapist, somebody to help walk you through that, because there is another side
Hmm.
and you don't have to live under that cloak of fear forever.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
The one thing that we didn't touch on with the sort of umbrella of everything under imposter
Mhm.
syndrome is how it just leads to burnout.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
Trying to do all the things and everything and do
Yes.
it
Mhm.
perfectly.
Correct.
You know.
Plus hide.
Yes.
You're performing, and
Hmm.
then you're also trying to hide the truth, and that's exhausting.
Yeah.
That's exhausting, and totally leads to burnout. Absolutely.
Yeah. And from your perspective, if you could give like three just easy breezy tips on how
Mhm.
to address burnout, what could you share for the audience with that?
Um,
And it doesn't have to be three. I just threw out
see,
three.
I know you should. I'm like,
No pressure.
3, no pressure, no pressure. Um, first and foremost, know your why.
Mm,
Everybody goes into their career for a reason. Understand your why. And if your why is no longer your why, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing. So first and foremost, know your why. Secondly, make sure that you have built in time for your people. And by that, it's a significant other, your kids, your girlfriends, somebody who's going to help pour into you, even if you're talking about nothing but the weather,
mhm,
that you're going to have that. And third, which is the one I struggle with the most, and that is rest.
mm,
Sometimes when I rest, I feel like, okay, where's my laptop? I need to multitask. And to be able to rest, and I've instituted a no screen day. So
mm,
on Saturdays, I don't open my laptop, I don't check emails, I don't respond. Like, I do not look at a screen on Saturdays because that is my day to check out. And that is the concept of rest
Right.
that you have to, especially with everyone working from home right now, or a
Mhm.
lot of people working from home, you have to find a way to disconnect.
Yeah.
So know your why, have your peoples, and find a way to build in some rest.
Yeah. I like that. And I was just having a conversation or listening to a conversation about that this morning was sometimes we think of breaks or rest as being non-productive. Like I can't take a
Exactly.
break because
Yeah.
it's not productive. When in fact,
Right.
rest is productive. It is
Absolutely. And we need
productive
it.
for your
Yes.
self-care. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So we need that, you know,
Hmm.
and I personally just I had to clear out a room in the house because I felt like I didn't
Hmm.
have any place that was just quiet.
Right. Right.
There's
Hmm.
the office with everything in it. There's a living
Hmm.
room that has the TV, but just a place that was quiet for me.
Right.
I
Right.
had to get that done. And
Right.
that was my rest. And that's where I go to find my peace.
Hmm.
So find your
Absolutely.
space. I always tell people find your spaces.
Yep.
Know your productive spaces, whether it's productive for your
Correct.
work or productive for your rest.
Correct.
But find those spaces.
Correct. And I've tested the theory that 4 to 5 hours of sleep and an IV of espresso is how an overachiever functions. Not literally an IV, but so I've tested that theory and it's just not valid. So rest also needs to involve some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't run on 4 to 5 hours of sleep and lots of caffeine for very long. Your body starts to rebel. And if your body starts to rebel, your emotions then they basically have a party.
Yeah.
And because you have no energy to manage them.
Yeah.
So definitely include that in with your rest.
Right. And those, even to take that further, like some people may not even realize how much emotions play in not just, your anxiety and things like that, but also your
Mhm.
decision making
Oh my gosh,
and
yes.
how you show up
Hmm.
into work and,
Right. Yep.
productivity and focus, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So
Yep.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. I have one last serious question for you
Okay.
because, you are a mom, you have a
I am a mom.
business,
Yes.
you have
Mhm.
social media.
I do, reluctantly speaking, but I have social
Yes.
media. Yes.
So with all the things that are going on, how do
Mhm,
you stay organized or, in productive
mhm,
time, use your time
mhm,
wisely so that you aren't sort of
mhm.
flailing all over the place? How do you?
Right. Yeah. I would love to say that I have a perfect system
Mm,
that works every day and is fail proof. But however, the reality is that it's still a learning process. I definitely find that time for rest, in my Saturdays, but even during the week, I find that very important. And really have set some personal policies
mm,
um,
I like that.
is yeah,
What
personal
policy?
policies, yes. Personal policies set in place of how many hours I'm willing to work, like what type of social engagements I'm willing to go to. Obviously, not so much right now, but like, what is it that I need to protect me? What are my personal policies so that I can stay healthy and show up and be there for my clients? And it's a daily challenge because there's always competing factors that come in, and there's always things that'll pop up that it's like, okay, is this worth deviating from my personal policy? And sometimes the answer is yes, because the need is great.
Mhm.
A lot of times the answer is no, like, let's try to schedule it in later. So trial and error. Failure is has become a word that I embraced because I look at it as first attempt in learning, FAIL.
Mhm.
And when you look at failure through that lens, it's learning what you need, learning what you don't need, and course correcting.
Yes.
So I make sure I plan my week. I use a goal tracking sheet. So I plan the month and then I plan the weeks. And it's all with just very small, achievable tasks that I want to get done that week. I don't plan every minute, but it helps keep me focused, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah. I think
It'll
everybody feels
always be a work in
that.
progress. Yes, always a work in progress.
Yes. Unless your day is exactly the
Mhm,
same every day, every second,
mhm.
and always
Yep,
be some fluctuations, some
right.
shifting.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. I'm good. Personal policies. That
Personal policies, yes. I've worked with a business coach. I call her Corey the Guru. And when she first gave that language to me, I was like, what the heck's a personal policy? I was like, oh, it's a boundary, but it sounds so much better.
Right.
Yeah, so personal policies, yes.
I'm gonna have to like borrow that from you, Melissa.
Absolutely. Actually, you're borrowing it from Corey the Guru.
Okay, thanks, Corey the Guru. Love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, these conversations always go way too quickly, and I just have so many more questions, especially like from a science perspective. But I'm gonna save you guys from my nerdiness, and we're gonna start to wrap up our conversation with Melissa. It is time for the Fab Four. Melissa, are you ready?
I am so ready. I am so ready.
Okay, Melissa. 4 questions. First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
What's the strangest food you've ever eaten?
Octopus.
Okay, I've had it. Chewy. Did you like it? Okay, you didn't like it.
Oh, no, not at all. Mm-mm.
So no more
No,
octopus.
ma'am. No more octopus.
All right. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Mind reading.
Mind
reading, because it would make my job, I don't want to say easier, but more effective.
Right.
Okay.
So
I would love to read minds.
Love it. I need one of those helmets so you can't see.
I know, exactly. I'm sure I'd only love it for 24 hours and then I'd want to hand it back. But yes.
Okay. If you had to pick a song to represent your life, what would it be?
I actually spent 8 hours one night looking for a theme song for a training that I was in.
Okay.
And
8 hours.
I did. I stayed up. I was listening. I was like overanalyzing, talk about being a nerd. I was being a nerd. Like, what does this mean? And how do I analyze it? And how do I apply it? And then I chose a song I had never heard before that I realized was I don't listen to radio because I like silence in my car. I didn't realize how popular it was, but I don't care. It's still my theme song. And that is This Is Me by The Greatest Showman. You've never heard it?
I've never seen them. You talking about the movie, right?
Yeah.
I've never even seen the movie. I've never heard the song, nor have I seen the movie. And I'm a movie person. Yeah, it's sad.
I would highly, 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 highly recommend. But the whole basis of the song is take or leave me. I am who I am. This is me. And I'm taking on the world. And it's just a very empowering song. And I'm getting chills even talking about it, because that's just how I've seen my journey over the last 10 years and where I'm at now. I wouldn't have been here 10 years ago. But where I'm at now is right at that point. So check it out.
Nice. Well, I have to, because I make a playlist of all the songs. So season 1, there's a playlist on Spotify of all the songs that the women have given. And now
I love it.
Yeah. So it will be on there.
Okay, good.
Yes. Okay. Final Fab 4 is
Yes.
just a statement. Finish the statement. I am passionate about people. I like it. Lovely. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. You have been a pleasure to have on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been delightful.
No problem. If people want to stay connected with you, how can they find you?
My website is just my name, melissarussiano.com. And I'm sure that'll be in show notes somewhere, so people don't have to attempt to phonetically spell that. And via the website, you can contact me for a complimentary consultation. You can listen to podcasts, read my blog, connect with the social media links I'm on. So it's just a great portal to learn more about me and to connect with me. So
awesome. Wait, shout your podcast out.
My podcast?
Yeah, what is it? Shout it out.
My podcast, like, shout it out. My podcast goes live on March 8th. So it's called Beyond the Smile, Real Talk with Real People. And on it are a bunch of helping professionals talking about imposter syndrome and talking about what it's like to show up and present, but yet still have that struggle behind. And I
Mhm.
really want to start normalizing this
Yeah.
conversation that it's okay to not have a perfect life. Join the club. We're all human.
I love that.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm excited for you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
No
Thank you. Thank
problem.
you.
No problem. And don't worry, guys. We will have all that in show notes so you didn't miss anything if you didn't catch it. Okay, we got you. So again, Melissa, thank you. Guys out
Thank you.
there, thank you for being here. Melissa, you've been great. Doorways, guys, and personal policies. Don't forget it. Mantras in your doorways and personal policies. That's what we're going to work on moving forward, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Dr. Erika.
And you guys, as always, thanks for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.